housekeeping? How's everyone looking, squad-wise, injuries?
Okay. So from our perspective, there's no one really making a return from injury this week, but Tom Rogers and Tame Plumtree have both started reintegrating slowly into training, so that's obviously great news for us. Tom's been a bit shorter than Tane, but I think that seeing Tane out there is great for us because he's obviously a big signing in the summer. I haven't seen too much of him, and I think he's obviously disappointed with that. So yeah, good to see those two guys out in training.
There's a break in the Six Nations this week where you haven't had any players back from Wales camp. Are you disappointed with that? Have you spoken to them?
Obviously disappointed because I think we're missing 9 guys from away with Wales, and we have a couple of injuries as well, 4 or 5 injuries on top of that to good players and key players, and I think that that's a loss in anyone to have 13, 14 players unavailable. Obviously that the Wales have felt that they wanted to keep their players together and have training numbers, etc. Obviously disappointed because I think we could have those players back. We saw Joe play well last week when he came back for the Munster game as the Kemsley, but can't do much about it because they're in control of that. So, but yeah, obviously I would have liked to have more players back.
And how do you go about preparing for Connacht now then without those players that maybe you thought you were going to get a few back?
Look, I think for ourselves, it's about concentrating on what we've got here. The guys who have been here have been training hard now for the last 2 weeks and preparing for this game. So for us, it's it is what it is, and we move on and we make the selections accordingly. Gives opportunity for young boys to step into those slots. Johnny Williams is back from suspension, so he's to go back on the housekeeping. So, it's good to have him back in the mix as well. So, look, I think for ourselves, we've cracked on with it this week. Looking forward to the challenge in Galway.
It's a difficult time for Welsh rugby at the minute, the regions especially. What were your thoughts on Warren Gatland's comments about the regions? Was it helpful, unhelpful? What's your thought?
Well, I think it's obviously when we're sitting, it's unhelpful, but I would say that I think that from my perspective, what I'd say on that is I think there are a lot of people who are doing a lot of good work and working hard, and from my perspective here, we're striving to get better every day. And I think that, there's a lot of development, a lot of investment going on, good coaching going on here. And the results haven't been where we need them to be, bottom line for us, but I would say that we want to improve, we want to get better. And yeah, look, some of the points are valid, but we are dealing with the constraints we have as well. And we are striving to get better every day. So I think that, from my perspective, those are where I see it, and obviously disappointing to, I understand some of the comments, and I think that, from our perspective, you look at what we have here from a club's point of view and facilities, etc. It's very, very good.
And is it just a case of the fact that the budgets are coming down, it's just getting used to it and how it's going to work going forward?
The budgets are the budgets, and we have to work within that. We can't make more money. That's what it is. So I think that you have to do the best you can with that. And I think that, that's the challenge about investment, where you put it. And, from an infrastructure point of view, I know there was a lot said about that. I think, we're pretty good here. I think we have good infrastructure where we're going. And I think from a staff perspective, and as I said, I'm confident everyone's working hard and we're trying to make things better. And I think that, playing budget is the playing budget, and we have to deal with that, and we have to make the best we can out of that. And that's what we're striving to do. We want to be competitive, and I think that there's times this year we haven't been competitive. There's times where we have been competitive, and probably not as accurate as we'd like. But I think long-term strategy of this club, we want to be competitive, and I think that that's the goal of everyone at the club, and everyone's working hard to do that. Yes, there's areas we can improve, undoubtedly. But there's areas we want to improve, and the reality is we haven't got funding for it, and we all need to work together in this as well. And I think that Welsh Rugby as a whole needs to come together on that, because that should be the goal for whole of Welsh Rugby, is that we all want to get better, not just the national team, the regional game, everyone. And I think that for me that's the primary goal. But all I can speak about is what we're doing here. And I know there's a lot of good work and a lot of hard work and goodwill happening here. So I think that that's all I can say on it.
You mentioned an area to improve on there. What do you work on then going to Connacht? There's never an easy ask, is it, to play away there? They're also missing players to the Irish international setup. How do you go about bettering those areas that need improvement?
Well, I think we've got to put work in on the training ground at the start, and we've done that. I think there's areas of the game that specifically we've looked at this week with Connacht in mind. I think if you look at a Munster game, at 60 minutes we were at a point we were a score away. But ultimately, I didn't think we managed the game that well. I think that we could have applied more pressure at Munster. I know they came back and scored. The last 20 minutes wasn't good enough from us from an accuracy point of view, and we had a lot of young guys on, down to 14 men in the end. But I think there's a lot of things we can take from that Munster game. I think our game management, the way we play the game, is important, and I think that accuracy when we do get into opponents 22 is very important as well.
And finally, the embargoed question, Yarrow, about Manus. So, signing new player, Manus van der Merwe, what can he bring, and how excited are you to have a new hooker in the ranks?
Yeah, he's a guy we've looked at for about 12 months now and kept an eye on. I think he's a robust player. He's big, and from terms of physicality and gain line, he can give you that. He's a hard worker, and he's just managed to get himself into the South African squad as well. So I think that, for us, I think we look at him from a physical standpoint, and he's a player who's going to make us better, undoubtedly, within the squad, and I think that we've got a good crop of hookers here, and depth and competition is important to build, especially in that front five for us. And it's good. It's great that he's chosen to join, and looking forward to welcoming him in the summer.
Just one more, sorry. Talking about hookers, how's Ken coming along?
So Ken's similar to how we've spoken in the past. I have no timeline for you on where he's going to be. So we're just working through that, and he's working away with that. Yeah, don't put that.
Obviously, with Babs leaving, will there be more changes for coaching team next year?
Oh, not that I envisage, Seth, to be honest. I think that as I said, we're still hopeful that Babs will remain within the organisation. We've just made a bit of a change in that area there. So no, I don't envisage that happening.
Yeah, with obviously, I know we've had injuries and stuff, but obviously results haven't gone your way this season. I mean, what plans are being put in place to make sure that you can win more games next season?
Well, I think from there's a number of things really. I think you look at recruitment as one. I think that retention is one, and I think that the way we go about our game plan and I suppose how we plan the pre-season, off-season, the end of the season. I think there's a lot to look at. So we look at every area of the game. Obviously, as you said, the results haven't gone away, but from my perspective, there's a number of areas that we will look at over the course of the next couple of months, pre-season, etc., going into next season. But I think there's 8 games to go this season yet, so there's a lot of rugby still to be played. We're working hard every day, as I said, in training. So look, I think from my perspective, we're striving to get better results, obviously.
Will there be more to follow after obviously you've announced Manus today, and presumably front five will be the area that you'll recruit in?
Yeah, there'll be more recruits, definitely retentions, and so that's we're working hard on that at the minute. We know the challenges around the budget, so we have to do the best we can from that perspective. But look, I'm sure we will announce when we're ready to some more players into the group, and also the retentions that we've done. So I think that like any other year, those conversations and those discussions are always ongoing, and said working hard on that really.
Yeah, for yourself, how tough has this season been for you? Has it really challenged you as a coach? You look at all the best coaches. You look at Steve Hampson. We went through that run with Wales, and then 10 years later, won the World Cup. I mean, do you think it'd be better for
the World Cup?
Maybe it doesn't feel like it now, but in a few years.
Yeah, look, I think from my perspective, there's a lot of learning to be had from this season. And you look at the start of the season and how certain things were managed, and how would you do things differently in this scenario again? Would you have approached this scenario differently? And there's always areas that you always can improve, I think. And it has been a challenging year, undoubtedly. And I think that I've enjoyed the season as well, in terms of the challenges that have been thrown at us. It's been obviously frustrating at times, but I think for me, you've got to look at it at the big picture and where we're going to go with this club. And the club, from my end, it is. I mentioned it after the Munster game. I think there's a lot of frustration. I obviously know around fans, etc. But we are going through a period of a bit of transition. We are going through a period where we have to deal with some pain, and I think we're working hard on that. And I think that we want to get. We know where we want to go, and we know I want to push the club, and we want to be competitive. And that's my big thing, and I think that there's going to be ebbs and flows, and there's going to be highs and lows at the minute. Obviously it's a bit of frustration around with the season we've had, but as I said, there's 8 games to go, and we need to strive hard for this next 8 games, and moving on for the next couple of years, because I know we have a crop of young talent coming through in this club. People like, obviously looking at the Wales squad now, we've managed to get Joe Roberts in there, Sam Costello's in there, Johan Lloyd's in there, Kemsley's in there, Tainsbury in there, all these guys 21, 22, and then we have a real good crop of youngsters coming through as well, and they may be a year or two away, is the honest truth of it, those guys. But I think from my perspective, it's looking to the future and how we can I suppose bleed these young guys to make sure that we're going to be a competitive in the URC moving forward, and that's the primary goal.
Yeah, that's just moving into my next question. Actually, obviously the under-18s won the regional competition. I mean that does show that there is talent in the Scarlets region, that there is hope, for the future. It won't happen overnight, obviously, but in the long run. No,
definitely. And I think that crop. I think if you look at, I suppose historically with us as the Scarlets, I was probably fortunate to be here at the start of it, and there's a group of youngsters who came through around the same time then, and then there was another cycle of youngsters came through, like your Foxes, your Kens, your Scots, all came through together, and I think that happens sometimes, and I think that it looks promising. There's a good group coming through. There's no guarantees that those guys will come through, but I think there's a lot of good youngsters coming through the region at the minute, and I think that they take time. It takes time, and it takes a lot of coaching, a lot of, I suppose, commitment from their perspective as well as ours to make sure that they want to come through and do come through, and we have to invest in that. I think that that's exciting in itself, and again, it's like where we want to go to. We want to be competitive. We need good players here. But we need to produce our own good players as well, and I think we're starting to see that.
Which are the young players are you really excited about?
I think there's a lot of good forwards coming through. I think a lot of good back rowers coming through, a lot of second rows coming through in that group. So I think that there's 4 or 5. I'd like to say probably potentially will become Scarlets definitely in that group. In terms of those back 5 players. That's exciting. I think that stature-wise they're good as well. And I think they're big men. So I think that I think they've got a long way to go. And I think that they won the league they won the cup this year. But there's a lot of work for them boys to do as well to make sure that they push through. So I think that on both sides, I think there's a lot of promise, but I think there's a lot of work to do on them.
Just finally for me, that's you mentioned the front five. That's always been the challenge in terms of development down here, isn't it? Because we've always got good back rowers, good backs, but it's just developing those big second rows, those big ball carriers is something that perhaps you have to recruit outside for. Do you see that sort of potential in some of these youngsters in the front five?
Yeah, I think there are some front five. I think you can't develop big men in the second rows. That's you either got them or you haven't. So I think that's probably has been an issue for us down here, but not just now. I think if you look back at the past teams, before this group came through, you had your Jake Balls, etc., who were recruited in. Before during my time, it was like your Chris Wyatts and etc. But I think that from my perspective, I think the game is a physical game, and I think that we need to spend time and make sure that these boys come through. I'm looking at Josh Moss playing for the 20s on Friday. He's a good prospect, as Luke said. And I think that we need to make sure that these boys come through and we give them time to develop, obviously. But they're obviously excitement for the future.
Yeah, Dwayne, do you think there'd be an interesting balance now for the remaining games of the season, whether you play some of the youngsters or stick with some of the more experienced players, or kind of try and get that blend, really?
I think there's a blend, but I think some of it is down to what we have available, if I'm perfectly honest, as well. Because we picked
forced into it at times?
Well, we picked 23 players this week, but there's not too many left behind yet, is the honest truth, So it's not as if we have the luxury of a 50-man squad. We haven't got that. So we're pretty much at 23 this week. There's probably two boys, young guys, were left behind to play for Llandovery and the Quins. And there's probably three senior players left behind, and that's it. So it's not as if we have the luxury of bleeding. We are bleeding them. We have bled them. I think like people like Eddie James. We've seen him come through this year. Evan and Archie at scrum half, the two nines we have at the minute. So we haven't, it's not as a case it's pick or choose. Those are the guys who are available and those are the guys who are playing. And I think that so the younger guys get their opportunity through that way. And it's great for us because we can back those guys. You want to see guys going out and playing and young guys have an opportunity. I think the challenge does come when you have young guy, and then it becomes tough. Having like Sam Lousy back for us now was great. Because he's got a bit of an experience, drives that hard, and that's it's great to have that, really have that experience around people.
Do you find as well that maybe perhaps this season that not having your best team to hand really has impacted your position, but also the criticism that's come with the defeats being a bit harsh, perhaps?
Yeah, I think that, when you have lesser budget, you use two ways you go. I think you obviously you buy a smaller squad. And I think when you do have injuries, especially to key players, like Sam's played 2 games this year, Costy's played 2 games this year. 2 players who were key for us last year. Those are just 2 examples, really, of players who haven't really been available. Josh McLeod, a captain, obviously picked up a crappy injury again out in Claremont for him. It's very frustrating, but they're pretty key, influential players for us. Those I'm just naming those 3. I can name more, but Ken hasn't been available. So Samson retired. There's 5 guys there who fit would massively add to the squad, not just in terms of quality of play. Yeah, they're good players, but bringing youngsters along and leading by that example. So I'd say, look, it has impacted undoubtedly, because we don't have the luxury of having a massive squad in terms of numbers.
Perhaps in the later stages of games as well, if you see in the last one particularly where you were in the game for a long time, last 20 minutes fell away. Not having that experience really on the pitch perhaps cost you, is that fair to say? Yeah, no,
it is because you're relying on inexperienced players or young players to come on and put them in situations where if there's 1 or 2 doing it and they got experience around them, that helps. if you've got 4 or 5 young guys, then they've not been in that situation before. So it is a learning curve, and I think that it does back to, we have to take some pain sometimes in that scenario then.
What do you think of Connacht this weekend? And it's going to be a game where really it's trying to keep it close for as long as you can, and then try perhaps go and see if you can get something out of the game.
100%. I think that it's it's always a good place to go and play rugby. I think they're always a very passionate team. They're a very physical, combative team. They play some good stuff. Good halfback in Jack Harty, pings the corners a lot for them. So I think that where we play the game, and it's going to be important for us to have that field position against them and not allow them to get on top. We have to fly into them as much. We know they'll be physical and come out of the blocks. So we've got to stay in that battle, got to stay in that physical battle. And I think that, worked hard on that over the last couple of weeks. So look, we'll see where we go. But, we're looking forward to the game. Worked hard this week. So it'll be a good one to get after.
Dwayne, ni gychwyn, da ni ddim wedi siarad â Gareth Williams adael. Ys ti'n gallu egluro sut mae pethau'n gweithio o ran yr sefyllfa hyfforddi rwan, a pa mor anodd ydw i weld o'n mynd a sut mae chwaraewyr gymdogi hwnnw?
Yn amlwg, fel bod ni mas yn y wasg, bod fi'n cymryd mwy o arweiniaeth yn y gêm ymosodol. Mae Jarrod wedi cymryd fwy o arweiniaeth yn yr amddiffyn. A hefyd yn ogystal a rhedeg rai o'r gêm ymosodol gyda'r cefnwyr ag ati. Felly, a i fi'n bersonol chyma'n amlwg newidiaeth o ran y grŵp. Fel wedyn ni'n gobeithio bydd Gareth yn aros yn yr anbarth. Mae chwaraewyr o'r ochr fi wedi bod yn proffesiynol iawn. Chyma'n amlwg yn hoff iawn o Gar, fel mae pawb. Ond na, mae pethau wedi, maen nhw wedi mynd i waith yn dda, a so fel y mae rydw.
O ran y gêm penwythnos yma, oeddech chi'n disgwyl mwy o chwaraewyr yn ôl o garfan Cymru mwyn cryfhau eich carfan chi fynd i deithio golwg? Yn amlwg, mae naw o chwaraewyr ni yn y garfan, ond ni ddim yn disgwyl pawb yn ôl yn amlwg. Mae lot o boes wedi war, lot o munudau i Gymru. Bydde wedi bod neis i cael cwbl yn ôl, ond fel y mae. Ni'n amlwg, mae 14 neu 13 o garfan tîm cyntaf ni ddim ar gael wrth y sy'n neud yn anodd yn amlwg, ond ni wedi ymdopi'n dda o ran ni wedi dewis tîm cryf, o'r cryf a ni gyllu. A edrych mlaen at y sialens o fyny Golwy. Mae'n mynd i fod yn dasg anodd mas na'n amlwg. Maen nhw'n tîm hynod o gorfforol gartre. A ni di paratoi yn cyrra'n drylwyr, ond edrych mlaen, mae eisiau llawn lot o egni yn un o'r dysadwn i cael mynd atyn nhw. Mae'n mynd i fod yn gêm gorfforol, mae'n mynd i fod yn gêm gyflym. Felly, edrych mlaen at ydi. Mae wastad yn lle anodd i fynd, ydy, ac dydy'r canlyniadau ddim wedi bod yn mynd o'ch plaid chi tymor yma. Pa mor hyderus ydych chi rwan fel hyfforddwyr, ella fydd y newid yma yn gallu rhoi hope i'ch tymor chi, ddim yn gwybod?
Yn bendant, fi'n gytuno, fi'n credu chyfod amlwg perfformiadau yn bwysig i ddechrau, ond cael buddugoliaeth, falle bydd traws newid pethach o ran ni sy'n mynd mlaen. Mae lot o gêm y gartre gyda ni hefyd yn dod mlaen. Mae'n lle anodd i fynd yn amlwg. Ond ni'n hyderus bod ni'n mynd i mas yna a rhoi perfformiad dda. Fel wedys i, ni wedi gweithio'n galed am y gêm, ni'n edrych mlaen at y sialens. Fel wedys ti, mae'r perfformiadau ddim wedi, canlyniadau ddim wedi bod o'n blaid ni. A mae rhaid newid yr bryd, so pam mlaen dim oedd y syn.
Pa mor anodd ydi o i glywed sylwadau gan y prif hyfforddwr Cymru Warren Gatland ar yr rhanbarthau yr wythnos dwytha, pam ydych chi yn mynd trwy cyfnod anodd ella, di hwnna'n ychwanegu at pa mor anodd ydi wneud o, beth ydy ymateb di?
Yn amlwg braidd siomedig gyda fi'n deall o ran i safbwynt rai o'r pethau oedd yn gweud. Ond hefyd fi yn teimlo bod lot o pobl mynd yn gweithio'n galed. A yn ysu bob dydd i trio wneud y lle'n well a wneud perfformiadau'n amlwg yn well. o safbwynt ni, chwa, sa gallu gweud, chwa, mae'r Simon ni'n lle lot gyda'r beth yw constraints, beth yw hwnna'n Gymraeg? Gyda constraints gyda ni, chwan, amlwg mae'r arian yn anodd ar y funud, mae'r budget sy'n mynd i fod yn anodd, budget yn dod lawr blwyddyn nesaf, felly ni'n neud y gorau ohono ni, fel ni'n neud y gorau ohono ddi, gyda'r constraints sydd ni. Cyfyniadau sydd gyda ni.
I orffan ta, na ni gadw fan ta'n trigo hefyd, Marnus Van der Merwe, be o'n mynd i gallu dod i'ch carfan chi a pan mor neis ydi o i gyhoeddi'r ffordd yma? Ie,
yn amlwg yn greu cael dros y llinell, mae wedi bod yn chreu o'n i wedi edrych yna am spel fach, di'n gofforol iawn, arweiniaeth hefyd, felly edrych mlaen i gael i ddod blwyddyn nesaf, mae garfan o bachwyr dda dyn ni, so byddai'n adio hwnna'n bennad.
Gwych pob lwc ar bryd.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr.